Barca's offer. As you know, we've been trying to sign him for quite a long time. We have to thank his club for helping for him to come here. Talking about paying the buyout clause that they had to do, and Puallinho too has made a special effort to come here. He'll have a chance to explain that himself afterwards. Two have struck the deal with Guangzhou Evergrande. Talk about how the coaches at FC Barcelona have been analysing him for quite some time and knew he's the kind of player that would fit into the philosophy of the club. So this is a chance to make first contact, but there will be an official press conference later on today. But I'd like to invite Puallinho to say his first words. Thank you for being here. Hello, everybody. A very special moment in my career. I thank you all for the effort that you've made to bring me here. Looking forward to playing some great games. Thank you to everybody, the staff, for making an astute choice and having the trust in me that I can do good things for you here. The next part of protocol, of course, is the shirt, turning it around and revealing his name on the back with the number 15 on his back. Okay, well, we've been speaking on Barca Video for the last hour or so. I'm glad to say now we're going live to our 103 million listeners on Facebook. So good morning to all of you around the world on Facebook. And you're joining us at a historic moment because Puallinho has just said his first words officially as an FC Barcelona player, seen here in the company of Josep Maria Bartomeu, and we can confirm that Puallinho is wearing the number 15 shirt. This morning he's taken his medicals, both at Hospital de Barcelona and at the Ciutat Esportivo, and we understand that everything has worked out perfectly. We've seen images of those medical tests, and you can see he's now being joined to his left, our right, by Robert Fernandez, the technical director of sport here at FC Barcelona, and he will be joining Puallinho at around about 2:15, about an hour's time from now, for a press conference, and they'll be answering questions about Puallinho signing, and I'm sure that Mr. Fernandez will also be asked about a couple of other names that have been mentioned as potential additional signings for the club before the end of August. So we're posing now for the official photograph. As you can see, Puallinho will be wearing number 15. We're not sure if there's any symbolic reason for that number being taken. Hopefully that's something that will be clarified in the press conference. Puallinho looking all smiles, as he would be for signing for FC Barcelona. Looks like one of the reporters wants to keep the shirt. Puallinho, he's been nothing but smiles all morning. Very photogenic guy. And they've moved on, and as you see, the journos are also moving on, because the next part of the protocol is going to be Puallinho appearing on the pitch. Normally, he will go now and get changed into his FC Barcelona strip. So it will be in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from now, when he's all kitted out, that he'll be appearing for the fans on the field. Images here of the FC Barcelona ball. There are several of those balls lined up. which I'm sure he's going to show off some of his juggling skills, and then he's going to be doing the traditional kick the ball up into the stands, meaning that some of the people in the stadium today enjoying the Camp Nou tour that have also been able to join in with this welcome for Puallinho. Puallinho are going to get the chance to catch some of the balls and take them home.
Jo no soc gaire bo en matemàtiques, però diria que hi ha 2.000, 3.000 persones.
We're saying that there's probably about 2,000 people in the stadium at the moment.
Que hi haurà una novetat, i és que hi ha 10 nens de l'FCB Escola que estan aquí a les grades.
And something new that's going to be happen, which doesn't normally happen at these presentations, is some of the kids from FCB Escola, the Barca soccer school, are going to be appearing down here at pitch level as well. Apparently there's going to be a kick around involving them and an exchange of gifts. So that's going to be nice to see. That's going to be added to the normal speeches, to the fans, to the normal juggling of the ball, giving away of gifts to the fans, and of course the delivery of the Audi car, which is always traditionally given to the players.
I Jaume Marcet, estem parlant molt aquí de Puallinho, segurament que tu ens estaràs escoltant, i ahir parlàvem al Marcet.
So like I said, we've now gone live on Facebook, so send in your comments already. I see there's already 14,000 people that have clocked in. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of you after. Send in your messages, send in your welcome messages for Puallinho, and we'll be more than happy to share these with you out there. So send in your Facebook comments, please.
Teníem dos migcampistes com eren Johan Neskens i Asensi, que salvant les distàncies eren una miqueta similars.
We're seeing here of the signings of Neskens and Asensi way back in the 1970s, how they were players perhaps signed in similar circumstances to Puallinho. Kind of physical midfielders that were brought in to add something new to the club, and Neskens, how much he did blend into the team and provide just the kind of thing that the club's probably hoping to get from Puallinho.
És un jugador que ho donava tot al camp i que demostrava molt recorregut, moltes arribades, molts xuts.
Players signed at a similar time of their careers. Remember, Puallinho is 29. We've been talking about how he's a tall player, he's a physical player. He's going to add something in the air, which people have always said that where Barca have been lacking is players that are strong in the air. And certainly that's one of Paulinho's great assets, which he's shown playing for Brazil, playing for Corinthians, playing in China. We're talking about this guy, that's Jose Maria Baquero, another player who's been likened to Puallinho. Talking about Edgar Davids as well, is another player who seems to have the kind of assets to offer.
Que li va donar molt rendiment al Barça i que va ser un punt
d'inflexió. We're seeing the famous goal against Kaiserslautern, I believe. The famous goal back in 1992. Here we're seeing Edgar Davids, that we mentioned earlier, another player that's been likened to Puallinho.
Keita és segurament el jugador que més s'assembla al Puallinho que veurem aquí al Camp Nou.
Another player is, of course, Keita, the Malian. He's another player, tall, physical, strong. Talking about how he's a player that tends to cover the midfield. He drops back, he's defensive, and yet he's also a player that scores goals. He's one of the top scorers of all time in World Cup qualifying matches in the CONMEBOL zone. I understand, check this on Wikipedia, he scored as many goals as Leo Messi in South American qualifying games, and he's apparently the highest scoring Brazil midfielder of all time. So there may be some skeptics about Puallinho arriving at the club, but there's so many things to look at in this player that he certainly does have assets that he can bring to the club. So we've just been looking there at some images of some of the players that have been likened to Puallinho over the years. Images here of the some 2,000 people inside the Camp Nou at the moment, here to welcome Puallinho to the club. The fourth new addition to the first team. Nelson Semedo, of course, arrived from Benfica, Portuguese international. We saw him in action last night in the Spanish Super Cup. Gerard Taylor-Fell, who's returned to the club really because of course he's been elsewhere in Spain, in Italy and in England. He's now back at the club of his youth. And the other new addition, of course, Marlon Santos, another Brazilian, certainly a Brazilian feel to Barca at the moment. Marlon Santos, of course, from Barça B, promoted to the first team.
Entenc que vol tornar a recuperar el Futbol Club Barcelona pel seu estil, pot encabir-se. Dic una cosa, també hi ha partits en el que el
Puallinho certainly had a curious career that's brought him around the world to FC Barcelona. It's been a story of all kinds of unlikely things. He originally played for Pau d'Açúcar, which is a Sugarloaf. It's a very small club in his native Brazil. And at the age of 19, he left for Vilnius in Lithuania, where he really struggled to fit in. He was just 19 at the time. He suffered some horrendous abuse, racist abuse there, found it really hard to put up with that. He was having coins thrown at him, monkey noises. Didn't have a nice time at all in Lithuania. Moved south of the border to Poland, where things didn't really go much better. He really struggled to fit into the Polish culture, struggled with a cold Polish winter, struggled with the language, felt very homesick, and his wife was back in Brazil pregnant, so really didn't fit in too well. Ended up going back to Pau d'Açúcar, and from there things started to progress. He went on to Bragantino, which was a slightly bigger club, and then to an even bigger club, Corinthians, where he spent 4 extraordinary years, winning in 2012 the Copa Libertadores, winning the World Club Cup, beating Chelsea. We're going to listen now to Valverde with some words about Puallinho.
Es un jugador importante y luego desde el punto de vista físico él es un jugador fuerte que nos puede ayudar desde otra perspectiva.
Jo crec que l'arribada de Puallinho doncs, és una arribada molt bona perquè és un jugador amb un perfil diferent a el que tenim i és un gran jugador, no? Jo he jugat contra ell amb la selecció, vaig jugar també a l'últim Mundial de club i bueno, és un jugador que pot aportar molt, que és titular en Brasil, no? Que és una de les millors seleccions del món.
Well, I'm afraid that due to some technical hitch, I wasn't able to hear the sound for the interview or for the comments there from Ernesto Valverde and from Sergio Busquets. I wasn't able to give you the translation, but they were speaking high things of the player. We're going to look now at future Brazilians that have played at FC Barcelona.
Comencem, per exemple, què et sembla amb una xilena? Quina millor manera de començar?
Well, there's Rivaldo, that overhead kick there. I'm not sure if that... yeah, that's the famous one against Valencia that saved Barca in the very last minute of that game from what would have been their only season not playing European football. That was Rivaldo, of course. There's a player that needs no introduction. That's Neymar, with no name on the back of his shirt for some reason. And this, of course, Ronaldinho.
Ronaldo, Romario, Silvinho, Alves.
Obviamente, pero estos sí que tiene un perfil más parecido, ¿no? Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Rivaldo.
Of course, Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, as we always like to see. He was here for that season, 1997, I believe, under Bobby Robson. Yeah, there's Bobby, the late great Bobby Robson himself there. Romario, part of the dream team, brought real magic to the club. Oh, that was just beautiful, that goal that he scored. That was Romario back in the early 90s, another wonderful Brazilian player to have worn the famous Blaugrana shirt.
I sí que és veritat que hi ha hagut sempre una sinergia, no?, entre el Brasil, els jugadors brasilers i el Barça, perquè ja siguin cracs, ja siguin jugadors que siguin més complementaris, però que en tot cas la majoria de brasilers han triomfat al Barça.
Hi ha hagut un pont aeri que ha comunicat directament a aquests jugadors
Another of the great Brazilians.
aquesta
now,
arribada
of
de jugadors
course,
brasilers
at
amb l'èxit
PSG,
al
along
Futbol
with
Club Barcelona.
Neymar Jr.
Però és que tot això que relacionem amb el futbol brasiler, l'alegria, la samba...
Talking here about how Barca has always had a certain affinity with Brazil because of the joyous way that Brazil like to play their football, and how that tags in so nicely with the joyous way that Barcelona have always liked to play football as well. So there's always been a history of great Brazilian players at the club. In fact, if you tag down the top 10 Brazilian players of all time, you'll find that probably a good 2/3 of them have worn the Brazil shirt at some point or other of their career.
d'Europa, i per tant estem parlant de que si tu canvies una miqueta el paradigma de futbol, també has de tenir futbolistes en altres posicions que no només sigui a dalt, que siguin futbolistes...
So I was talking previously about Puallinho's career and how things were going so well for him at Corinthians. He'd won the Copa Libertadores and he was playing for the Brazil national team and doing so well, voted the third best player at the Confederations Cup of 2013, which Brazil won, beating Spain in the final. Things were going wonderfully for him and he was snapped up by Tottenham Hotspur as one of the great players of the moment. Seeing images here of Puallinho at the medical centre this morning, taking his medicals. He went to Tottenham. High hopes for the player in his first season under André Villas-Boas. Things went reasonably well. Perhaps one of the turning points was the 5-0 defeat at home to Liverpool when he was sent off, in fact, for high challenge on Luis Suarez, who's now going to be one of his teammates at FC Barcelona, of course. Things sort of started dropping off. People started asking questions if he was really the player that people had thought he was. And then under Tim Sherwood, who replaced Villas-Boas, he spent a lot of time injured. Things didn't go well. And then going into his season under Mauricio Pochettino, he only started 3 games. Things really weren't going very well for him. He ended up going to China, as you know, to Guangzhou Evergrande, and for there things have taken a dramatic turn for the better. You can knock the Chinese Super League if you want, but he's very much been the hero of that club, winning the Chinese Super League twice in a row, winning the Asian Champions League, doing very well at the Club's World Cup, getting to the semi-finals, beating Club America of Mexico on the way. And if you look at other players like Teixeira, like Ramirez, like Lavezzi, like Oscar, they're examples of how it's not that easy to settle into Chinese football. But Puallinho has done, and perhaps questions were asked that he was unable to settle into football outside of Brazil. Well, in the most unlikeliest of places, he did manage to do so in China. We're now hearing a repeat of the presentation of Puallinho earlier on, where Mr. Bartomeu spoke about how grateful he was to the Brazilian for accepting the offer to sign the player to the club. Also thanking Evergrande for their predisposition to help with the transfer, allowing him to come. Talking about how the deal went and how the transfer fee worked out more or less the same as the buyout clause in his contract. Puallinho himself made a very special effort to come to the club. Explaining also how he joined for the club because the coaching staff and the manager at the club had wanted him as a player. They'd been following him for some time, knew he was the kind of player that Barca wanted, needed even. And he was explaining, obviously, Puallinho is going to be speaking to the fans later. He's going to be giving a press conference, which we will be bringing you live coverage of here on Facebook. But this was Puallinho's first chance where he spoke about how it's a happy moment for him in his career, thanking the people for the efforts that were made to bring home, how he's looking forward to some really nice games, and thanking the staff for their astuteness for signing him and for entrusting in his ability to work for the club. And now these images are live. We're inside the stadium. We're hearing the Tot al Camp, the cant del Barça, as the player is welcomed onto the field with a ball at his feet to be introduced on this scorching hot midday August summer day, to be introduced to the fans. Okay, let's see what his juggling skills are like. Certainly nothing wrong with his juggling skills. He's done that well. I can tell you I couldn't do that, and with 2,000 people watching me, it'd be even more difficult. Did he drop that on purpose? Was it an accident? Who knows? So Puallinho doing his dribbling skills. There's about 2,000 people in the stadium at the moment. What's going on in the background, you might ask? Well, those are some children from the FCB Escola soccer school, which Puallinho is going to be joining in a little while from now. It's a new part of the protocol. We've not done this before. That this hopefully is going to become a tradition. You see he's moving across to join the rondo, which is the kick around. Great moment for the young children. They're about to be joined by Puallinho, who's going to take his space amongst the players, saluting the young players from the FCB Escola. There was a moment of dread for me when Puallinho was about to speak earlier on, because I unfortunately don't speak or understand Portuguese. But it seems like Puallinho has an idea of Spanish. He was speaking slight Portuguesization, but generally pretty fluent and solid Spanish. So I don't know where he's picked up Spanish over his years. We understand he also speaks pretty good English. Obviously he was at Tottenham, so he learned English there, probably in his time in Lithuania and his time in Poland and his time in China as well. He probably used English to communicate too. I understand his level of English is quite good, so he may well be answering some of the questions to the press in English later on. But it seems that he can defend himself pretty well in Spanish, which is obviously going to help very well with his adaptation. There are about 2,000 people here in the stadium at the moment, absolutely packing the area where visitors to the Camp Nou experience get to enjoy the panoramic view of the stadium. They're getting a stroke of luck on their day visiting the club to realise that they've managed to clash with the day of the presentation of Puallinho, of Jose Paulo Bezerra Maciel Jr. I'll eventually get that without having to look down and look at my notes. And here we're getting the player posing with these youngsters, and who knows if this could be a historic photo that one of those 10 or so youngsters will one day along the line. It's 10 players. Counted that without even having to look. One of those 10 or so players will be members of the FC Barcelona first team in some years from now. Puallinho has been all smiles all morning, looking very dapper, dressed in his new FC Barcelona kit with the new sponsor Rakuten's name emblazoned across the front. Okay, these balls, there's somewhat less of those balls. There were more before. I think those FCB Escola children might have half-inched one or two of those for themselves. But there's 4 balls left, which are now going to be kicked up into the stands. And going to be a lucky extra souvenir for the players that are catching those balls. Loving the moment, Puallinho. In fact, a lot of players come out here, they look nervous, they look a bit bemused. One might have thought Puallinho in particular would have felt particularly bemused because there have been certain question marks asked about the transfer, but he certainly seems all smiles, all very, very happy. And as we've been saying all morning, Puallinho is probably just the player that FC Barcelona do need. He's got so many different qualities to add to the midfield. He's a tall, corpulent, strong player, good in the air. He's a midfielder that drops back and serves in defence, and also that works forward and contributes to the attack. He's a midfielder that scores goals. He's proved that. He's one of the best top-scoring Brazilian midfielders of all time. Next stage is when he's handed over the keys to his car, an Audi. Looks like he may well be needing a new car, because when he was in China, he had a driver. His driver drove him around in another make of car, which I shan't mention because that wouldn't be fair to Audi, who of course are the club sponsor. He had a different make of car, and when he was leaving Guangzhou Evergrande, he handed the keys over to the driver who'd been looking after him in China. He said, there you go, keep that. He's a generous man. Now he's got a car to replace it. He's got his own Audi, as you can see, modelling the car there for our fans. This Audi, a car that's presented to all FC Barcelona players when they arrive at the club. We saw the same thing happening with Nelson Semedo not long ago. I believe he's speaking to one of the executives from Gaudi, who is explaining the merits of the Audi A7 Sportback. And they've drug out some more balls, because some of the ones that were there before went missing. But he's now got some new balls, and he can deliver those to the supporters up in the fans, up in the stands. Doing a good job of this. There have been embarrassing moments over the years when players have picked up the ball and sent it all kinds of different places, but now all of these are being delivered nicely into the right area of the stands. Taking the whole thing very much in his stride. This, the penultimate part of his day. That was just a little bit above the players. You don't get them all right, but I'm sure someone will go up there and claim that ball that went astray. I would say the final part of the presentation is going to be at about 2:15. We were somewhat behind schedule, but I think we're very much back on schedule now. So I think we can safely say that the press conference between Puallinho, also featuring Robert Fernandez, is probably going to be starting more or less on schedule around about 2:15. Stay tuned here on Facebook. Stay tuned on Barca Video Live. We'll be bringing you all the events here from the Puallinho presentation up until and the end of the press conference, where I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of interesting questions asked. We'll look forward to that. 2 more balls. Is he going to do 2 at once? Let's see what he's going to do with these 2 balls. I thought as much. He's saved those 2 balls for 2 of the disabled visitors down here at the front. It sounds like a cliche, but in Paulinho's case it's very much true. If you listen to what people that know the player, they're spoken about what a generous player he is. He's very humble, he's very kind, and I'm not just saying that because you have to say that. It is very much true that people have said that he's an extremely warm-hearted, generous player. He does all kinds of things away from the limelight, where he likes to help people out, and he's very giving. Not the richest player in the world, but he does make money, and he's very, very fond of using that money to give it to people that are in more need of it than himself. So that's a player that very much fits in with the values of this wonderful club, FC Barcelona. Okay, that's the end of that lovely moment where Puallinho has delivered the balls. He didn't deliver a speech, which is something that often happens, so I assume we're going to count that as what happened earlier on when he was in the company of Bartomeu. These are images we haven't seen yet. In fact, this is Puallinho being shown into the dressing room. There's Robert Fernandez there, who will be joining him in the press conference. There he's pointing out some names of former players that have used this locker before. We saw the name of Riquelme there amongst them all. As you can see, the different names are kept and treasured so players can see who they've been with before. This was the moment when he got kitted out in the Barca strip for the first time ever. This happened just after signing his contract. We saw images of him going through the duty of signing both sides of every page of the contract. It was quite a heavy-duty thing for the guy to have to do. I don't know why they can't just use a smaller font and squeeze onto fewer pages. You get it over and done with a lot quicker. Look, he even juggles sitting down. So we had those images. Now he's moving out of the door and into the corridor. This is him, I assume, just before going out onto the pitch. That's the players' tunnel. Today he's just going down to, or just, in inverted commas, to be introduced to the crowd. But of course, in the future, he'll be walking out of that same tunnel to the sound of the Barcelona hymn, as in fact happened today, but with the stadium packed to take part in FC Barcelona's season 2017-2018, of course, which begins this Sunday against Betis. Don't forget, that's the first Liga game. Don't forget, I'm sure you're not going to forget. You all know Betis, the first league game of the season. We're being told again that at 2:15 the press conference is going to be coming to you live, and things are very much on schedule at the moment. We're getting images now direct live in the Ricard Machen's press room, where the journalists are starting to gather for what one assumes is going to be an unscheduled press conference, which is nice to know, because the Nelson Semedo one started 6, 7, 8 hours late, and these guys were not happy about the delay that day, whereas today I think they're going to be able to get off and have their lunch more or less on time, because certainly the presentation to the crowd was scheduled, happened at the same time that it was scheduled for. So one would assume that the press conference itself, I mean, there's not really much more for the player to do. He probably has to get back into his normal clothes, take off the kit, and other than that, then it's just walking down into the press room and getting ready to face the questions.
Imatges que estem veient en aquest programa especial de Barça TV. Lluís Esteban, vols sentir... Mira, l'Héctor, que fa de narrador.
Aviam.
Vols sentir a la Xina com narraven els gols de Puallinho amb la samarreta del Guangzhou Evergrande?
T'he de dir que he sentit algun, però no sabia què volien dir, eh?
Sí? No pateixis, perquè la Lluís Esteban tot seguit ens farà la traducció. La Lluís ens farà la traducció. Però abans, escoltem com a la Xina, els locutors xinesos narraven els gols de Puallinho. Un parell de gols, escoltarem.
高一点，有了！75分钟，前点日本人失控了。保利尼奥如果能为主啊，向后蹭，好蹭进来，漂亮，有了！你看，55分钟，这个持续形成攻势以后，我们必有进球，对，必有进球。
Lluís Esteban, endavant amb la traducció.
Que molt bé, Puallinho, que ho fa perfecte.
S'ha de dir.
No, un moment, la música...